My kids had grown up. Some of the pressure was off, right? I had some savings, so I could take a few months and really think about what was next. When I did that, my friends came back and said, look, you are a guy who really can work in any country. You've proven that you're able to go in, that doesn't matter if it's a different culture, different language, and you're able to make things happen. That is a skill. You also are really passionate about travel, and it comes across when you talk to people. You're very enthusiastic. You're a great spokesperson for this as well. And so as I thought about, and then you have this personal passion, I told you, my selfishness. So as I thought about all of my options, because I could have done something else. I could have gotten a traditional job at a company like anyone else. When I thought about really what I have to offer, that's where I realized the good life abroad is perfect and perfectly suited deeply in my personality and my values, etc., to do this kind of work. And so I have more clarity. And I think that is become maybe the thing that has made this successful, is because every part of me really believes in this, and and I'm well suited to talk about it.
Welcome to Age of Reinvention, the podcast where we explore the inspiring stories of those redefining freedom, lifestyle, and purpose in midlife. I'm your host, Emily Bron, and today we have a special guest who exemplifies reinvention in every sense of the word. At 50, Andrew Motiwalla co-founded The Good Life Abroad, a venture that offers upscale living experiences for the 50-plus years old community in Europe's iconic cities, traveling and enjoying the life. Andrew's journey from his early days in the Peace Corps to establishing a transformative travel experiences for older adults is a testament to embracing new paths and possibilities at midlife. Join us as Andrew shares his insights on creating meaningful global connections, balancing comfort with adventure, and finding purpose through slow travel. Whether you want to reinvent your lifestyle or seek inspiration, this episode is for you. Hello, Andrew. I'm happy to welcome you to the Age of Reinvention studio.
Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, I found you, and I was excited to learn about your new business venture, and I'm looking forward to learn more about you and your company. But as far as I learned through the research I did about you, your love for travel began during the college and was ignited by your Peace Corps service in Honduras. Can you share more about this period of your life and how these experiences laid the foundation for your career and travel and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Emily. It's funny because, as we were talking about previously, my parents are immigrants to the United States, one from India, one from Peru. So as a kid, we traveled a lot to see family. So people often assume, oh, you must have gotten into trouble because you're, and the truth is no, it's the opposite. When we were kids, we would have to go to these countries, and my sister and I, and we didn't really speak the language, and we didn't know these people. And it was just going from one family's house to another family's house. And back then, plane tickets were much more expensive. So you didn't go for a short period of time, you went for a long period of time. And me and my sister would say, oh, this is so uncomfortable. We just want to be back in the United States. So travel, it came much later, that love of travel, as you said, in the university, when I took a semester to go study abroad, and I studied in South America. And that was very transformative for me because first of all, I was on my own. My parents weren't with me. I was part of a university, so I had some support from the university. I lived with a local family, which was a great experience. But Ecuador is a small country, and every weekend I was able to hop on a bus, go to the jungle. I could go to the mountains. I could go to the coast very easily, and it was liberating to say I could just get on a bus and go places and discover things. And it was during this time when I really fell in love with the local culture, specifically the indigenous language. And I became very interested in anthropology. And that sparked a passion in me, this idea of anthropology and a love for other cultures. And so when I went back to the university, I was now on fire for anthropology and ended up studying that. And so I think the beauty of travel is that it can often spark a new interest in you, and you learn something new about yourself, or some kind of, whether you like languages or you like cooking or you like arts and craft. These are all things you can do when you're traveling. And for me, it was learning about cultures. And then I actually eventually went on to study the indigenous language of the Andes, Quechua. And that then led me to the Peace Corps, living in the mountains of Honduras. And that was a two-year experience, really living abroad for an extended period of time. And that really solidified for me the love of exploring other cultures. And that became the start of my career.
I can share with you love to travel. It's happened to me from the childhood. Even initially, it was in the borders of former Soviet Union. And all my life, I was dreaming to work somehow close to travel, but I couldn't do it as profession, as a business. I immigrated a couple of times, but with every opportunity, I was trying to travel, to go to check. And I really like culture immersion, to understand what actually history of the people, what taking these people. Like, I'm not anthropologist by education, but I fully share with you this interest and this flame to understand other people and how people are interacting with each other, and actually interest to this certain culture. I was not so close to the native cultures as you. Like, I don't know other than Honduras and people you were living with, but yes, coming from Europe, and I lived in Middle East, and I live in North America, and I have great interest to Latin America over my last at least 7 years, and traveling to Latin America now. It's yes, it's so interesting. But sorry, coming back to you, working with diverse cultures. So you work with, you mentioned Peace Corps, and I still only approximately understand like how you contributed to this work. And you work with such organizations like African Leadership Group and Latin American Leadership Academy. It shows a deep commitment to cross-cultural engagement. But can you tell a little bit more what it was about and what this academy service?
Sure. So if you look at my career, there's a lot of different things, but there's a line that connects most of those things, right? Which is, you're saying, this cross-cultural commitment, this desire to work with people from around the world. So you're picking up on that through line. And I think that is one of the skills I realized early in life. One of my first jobs after the Peace Corps was with an organization called Cross-Cultural Solutions. And my job was to go around the world and set up subsidiaries of this nonprofit in different countries. And I was really good at it. And I didn't know this about myself, because when you're a kid, you don't think, oh, I'm going to do this job of setting up subsidiaries. You don't even know that many jobs exist when you're a child. And so I learned that I could connect with people who are from different cultural backgrounds, and I could explain myself in a way that could motivate them to do this common objective, whatever the task was. And this one job, it was around setting up nonprofit subsidiaries. But later, as you pointed out in my career, I ended up working with the African Leadership Group, which is a really interesting group. It's actually a few different companies under one group. It's the largest IT training program in Africa. And the reason I was so excited about working with them is when you look at all the countries in the world and all the continents, most of them are aging and not having a lot of kids. Europe has a declining population, and United States. Africa is a young nation or a young continent. And in Africa, the average age is somewhere around 18 years old. It's a young continent and it's growing, and it will become a really major force in the world as other parts of the world start to decline. And the whole concept was, with this huge population of young people, how do we empower them to become part of the global economy? How can they benefit? Now, the founder is a man from Ghana originally, really inspiring guy. And his vision was that either we're going to empower these young people to be part of the global economy, or we're going to have chaos on our hands with billion people without jobs, in poverty. So, but there is raw talent there. These are the one thing he always said is that talent is distributed around the world, but opportunities are not so equally distributed. And so we created this in order to train people on skills that are in demand and actually have a shortage on AI development, software engineering, data science, Salesforce.com administration, cybersecurity. And we set up little campuses across different African cities and have a very intensive training program. It's about a year long to get them certified, and then they could go on to get additional certifications. That was one arm of the business. The other arm then was, how do we then place them to work with the global business community? And there is now an arm called SAMS Technologies that uses a lot of this African talent. Plus, they have European talent and American talent from all over the world, but they are using that to now mostly work on AI projects for global clients.
So are you continue to work with this?
No, so that was a great experience. I was working primarily for the African training education arm, and but I was based in California. I have 2 kids, so the time zone eventually made it such that I couldn't be going back and forth all the time, and I left that. Was at a crossroads in my life. And now what am I going to do? I'm 50 years old, and that kind of led me to starting the Good Life Abroad.
And a Latin American Leadership Academy. It was approximately the same just for Latin America.
Yeah, it's similar. I didn't work for them. I was a board member on the advisory board for them. And it's less technical skills and more around leadership development in high performing students from Latin America. The idea being, it's what Latin America needs are ethical, principled leaders. So many countries suffer from corruption. And no matter what you do, more in foreign investment, more foreign aid, whatever it is, if you don't have ethical, principled leaders at the top, none of that's going to help. The countries will just stay in the same kind of problems that they've had in the past. So the Latin American Leadership Academy is to work with high achieving young leaders and doing leadership training to make them more effective leaders and also help them propel forward in their own careers.
So what this organization is based on?
Yeah, so there's a whole curriculum. I don't want to bore your listeners on this, but around things like conflict resolution, mediation, vision setting, creating consensus to motivate groups to get things accomplished, as well as some general ethical, moral principles, basically about being part of something that's much bigger than you. A lot of the corruption often stems from selfishness. I can get into power to serve myself, but really wanting to serve others and serve the community that you're in. And whether that's at a city level or at a national level, truly creating this, it's a network of leaders who've gone through this program that are across Latin America.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we get to the very interesting and turning point in your life as you started to share at 50 you founded the Good Life Abroad company, focusing on upscale living experience for older adults. I understand Americans, North Americans mostly, correct?
primarily.
What inspired you after your previous experience to create this program? And how does it cater specifically to the needs and interests of the 50 plus age group?
So what inspired me was very selfish. I will be honest with you, Emily. I I was 50. I thought I would like to retire by 60. And what would my retirement look like? And I live in San Diego, California, and I love California. I love the weather. I love my friends and family that are here. But I also know that I would like to spend a few months of the year in Europe, probably a couple months of the year, maybe in Latin America, maybe also in Asia or Africa. But I also want to have my home base here. And I started exploring options, and things like timeshares or buying a property. A lot of people, they want to buy a place overseas. And I said, no, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to own anything. I don't want to have a timeshare. I don't want to have to pay taxes on a property in a different country where I don't necessarily understand the regulations. I just want to have an apartment that I always go to, that I like, and have someone there to handle my things, where I could just show up and start living on day one. And I'd like to have it in many places so I can just jump in and get that going. And so that was my initial motivation. I'm selfish. I want to have something for myself in retirement.
But it's not selfish. Many of us thinking about the same, and you did it. I was thinking about the same. I've had this like idea, dream. So kudos to you because you did it not for yourself only. You did it for others.
Exactly. So what I did is then I started doing some market research. I had this idea, but I did some market research, and I just started by putting something on my Facebook and said, who has been interested in living abroad for just a few months of the year, not permanently being an expat necessarily? And hundreds of my friends, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. So then I sent them privately a link to a survey. I said, okay, you said you want to do this. Why haven't you done it? What is stopping you? And then I found some other friends to share this with their groups. And in the end, we had about 500 responses, and we consolidated them and summarized them. And really, there's some pain points. People are worried about, if I don't speak the language, what happens if I have a medical issue? And who's there? If I'm by myself and I fall and I can't get up, like, nobody will know. He'll find my body. Will I get lonely? And as someone myself who's lived abroad, I know that it can be lonely because, especially if you're not there permanently, people say, oh, okay, this guy isn't going to be one of us. He's just here for a few months. Do I want to invest my time in building a friendship with this guy? Maybe, but it's not going to be the same. Things around, if I just go and live somewhere else, what if I pick the wrong neighborhood? What if the apartment I see in the Airbnb is not exactly like the photos? So a lot of concerns. And we thought, how do we solve these concerns for people to make it very easy and take a lot of the risk and worry away from that? And that's when we said, okay, the Good Life Abroad, our secret sauce will be community. Living, you have your own apartment, but you'll have other people who also love travel and love cultural immersion, living in walking distance in the same neighborhood, maybe some people in the same building. So you're independent as you want to be, but you also know there's people around you. And we also have a staff person in that city who is there to support you, put on activities, events, and give you suggestions and help you plan out things, whether you want to take language classes or do cooking, or you want some advice in terms of travel in the region. We have someone there to support you. So we have a community of people who become your friends. You have the community manager, our staff person, and we have a network of English-speaking medical professionals in all the cities and travel medical insurance. So if anything should happen to you, you're covered. You can get care and treatment that you might need. So suddenly, as you mentioned, of course, and we have worked with certain property managers that have a certain standard, and this goes back to your question, specifically that meets the needs of people 55 and older. For example, you're European, and so I'm assuming you've traveled all over Europe at different times in your life. We've all had that experience in a European hotel room where either you're sitting in the shower and you can't turn around because it's so small, or you're in the toilet and you hit your head on the sink because everything is so tiny. That doesn't work for older people, especially North Americans. We need a proper shower that you can go and you can turn around. You need space. Of course, it's not the same as an American apartment. This is different, and it is a cultural difference, but these are vetted to be comfortable for North Americans, older North Americans who are going to stay there for at least a month, if not more.
I remember from my experience, again, you can find big apartments like in Prague and Budapest, like small, as far as I remember, in UK usually. But in these countries, you can find comfort. They might be, I don't know, in upscale areas, but they're pretty big. How you define and find the neighborhood you would put people in to find accommodation in a city?
That's a great point, because sometimes people come to us and they say, oh, this is, for example, $5,000 for a month for the apartment, but also these activities and meals and tours. We include a lot of things in the program. They said, oh, I saw on the internet, I can get an apartment for $500. You said, sure, I'm sure you can. But what you're going to get, it might look great in the photos, but I can tell you that you, as a 60-year-old American, coming from the suburbs of Atlanta, are not going to be happy. So what we do specifically, in every European city for the most part, there's the old historic center, right? That very cute and charming, and the tourists are there. That's where they all go. And the typical American, when they travel to Europe, 2 days here, 2 days there, 2 days there, right? And they're just going to flying through the place. So if you have 2 days, you're going to just stay in that historic center, and that's what gets very crowded with tourists, right? And the restaurants have tourist prices, etc. But usually in most European cities, you go one ring out from there, and then it's a commercial center where actual businesses, the local businesses exist. Maybe there's corporate buildings, and local people start to live in apartments and high rises, and that one ring out. And then, of course, you keep going further, it goes more suburban. Eventually, you leave the city. But in most European cities, this is a trend: the urban historic center, and then you still have an urban center. And we go in that urban center, that one ring out from the historic areas.
How do you ensure that your programs in each city are adaptable and beneficial to all participants, probably with slight different demands and expectations?
Yeah, so this is really one of the best parts of the program. And it also goes to your whole theme of this podcast, this reinvention, is our program. We think of it as a blank canvas, and we ask all of our participants, what do you want to get out of this experience? What are you interested in? This is not a tour. We're not saying every day you're going to do these things. Our community manager wants to learn what you want to do. And we often have people who have passions that they want to explore now that they're retired. Right now I have time. And I think of a gentleman who was a lawyer, and he owned a law firm, very successful guy. But he always loved art. But he didn't have time for it. He was a lawyer. Lawyers have to work. And he retired, and then he came with us to Florence. But he said, look, I am very into Renaissance art. And in fact, he was so into it that part of his reinvention is he went to college again for one semester to take a class on Renaissance art. Then he came with us to Florence, him and his wife. And he told our community manager, I'm really into this. Can you help me? And our team gave him so many contacts to art events and Renaissance art things that most people would not see, all sorts of tips. And we took him to certain places that most people don't go to. And it was great. And in the same group, we had somebody else who said, oh, I'm really into food. I like to cook. And we connected that woman to extra cooking classes, to different types of restaurants, to chefs. So the idea is that it's a blank canvas. And if you set your intention of what do you want to get out of this experience, our team will help you. So you can have a very different experience than someone else in the group simply based on who you are. But at the same time, they all share the same love of cultural immersion.
Do they have time to learn language, or maybe for some people it's opportunity to improve the Italian or Spanish or other language?
Yes, in all places, we can connect them to more intensive language study. We'll always do a crash course, basic phrases. We think everyone should learn a few phrases. But if people have an intention to want to learn the language, they have a month at a minimum. And so they can take language classes to help improve. And we see a lot of that. People start before they go, maybe they get an app like Duolingo or Babbel and they practice, and then they come for that month, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. They'll do language classes in the mornings, and then they have time to explore the city or participate in activities with our group.
So do you have, I believe, returning clients, people who visited one or couple of countries? Because I understand it's from 1 month till three, because it's a maximum what North Americans can do by tourist visa in Europe, for example. And people coming after them to learn about different cultures, how it works.
Yes, we're seeing a lot of return clients, and a lot of it is people coming, especially from the West Coast of the United States. They say, if I'm flying all the way to Europe, maybe I'll do 1 month in Barcelona and then I'll go 1 month in Paris. So they'll combine two. And then they say, oh, I really like this way of travel because it's a deeper way. Like you said, it's a slow travel concept. And then now they say, okay, I want to do this every year. I want to pick some place and go very deep into a place. And I know some clients personally who specifically pick the cities that now are Spanish speaking. They want to learn Spanish. So 1 year they did Barcelona, this year doing Valencia. They're asking me, when are we going to open something in Seville or in the north? And so they're waiting. They keep going.
Great. Waiting list, it's always great. It push you to develop. So what are your future company development plans in Europe or maybe other continents?
Yes. In the short term, we want to expand to a few more cities in Europe because we were starting to establish a base. And what we are seeing is people combining. If I'm in Paris, and then I'm so close to, Spain, then I'll combine them. So we know that there's people who want to combine cities. So we need to get a little bit more in Europe. For example, we will likely be launching Rome sometime this year. That's a big request, and it's a major European capital. We would like to do a little bit more, maybe a little bit more in Eastern Europe as well, and a little bit in Scandinavia. So that's short term, medium term. And then you're right. There's a big question for us about just doing this other regions of the world. But one of the requests we get is, especially from Europeans, can I do this to go to the United States? I'm retired in Europe, but I've heard about this amazing place called Palm Springs in California. And I would love to live for a month in Palm Springs. So we're not sure. As a company, I'll be very honest, my focus right now is just continuing to develop what we're doing in Europe with excellence as we grow. And then at some point, we need to consider all the different possibilities for expansion.
So you can do exchange programs, exchange properties. You know this model. I understand it's not exactly, but it provides people opportunity to live in a real home, actually, in maybe better homes, to see how Americans, at least in Palm Springs, are living.
Or Florida or wherever.
Yes. And it's, by the way, all year around, or you have seasonal destinations, I would say.
Some places are all year round, and other places are seasonal. For example, in Florence, Italy, just because of the amount of tourists that come in the summer, we don't operate programs there because it's hot and crowded, and so it's just better to avoid it in the summer. However, in Lisbon, we're year round for the most part. And then other places, for example, in the southern Mediterranean, like in Sicily and Sardinia, it gets hot in the summer. So that's more of a great place to go in January, February, March, April, or in the fall.
I was in Rome in January. I so like it. Oh, I was even booked in advance, like Vatican and other no crowd, everywhere Christmas sales after Christmas sales, and absolutely different environment. It was my second time. I really like it. So
That's a great travel tip. Many people don't realize going on the very off season is a completely different experience.
yeah, and I was going to the market and it was still warmer than in Canada. So really nice. And tell me, please, after all your previous experience, if and how experience with Gold Life abroad influenced your invention or your perspective to business and life.
Yes, like you said, I have reinvented or redefined myself in many different aspects, right? Professionally as well as personally. And I think what you're getting at is my personal reinvention. Think what I learned through the years is I got to know myself better. So as a young professional, I think many people feel this. You come out of university, you got to go, you got to get a job and build a career. So you get something, it may or may not be perfectly suited to you, but you get something. If you work hard enough, often you can make some progress in it. And then I jumped from that job to another job to another job, but I never really stopped to think, who am I? I know what my skills are technically. I know my degree in the university. I know technical skills I have with certain types of software. But what really makes Andrew special? And so when I was in this period of thinking about the good life abroad, I wasn't actually sure what if I was going to do it. And I talked to some good friends who helped me do the inventory of myself. Like, what am I really good at? And I think this is a good thing for people to consider because you don't have, in your career, you often don't have time to stop and pause. And I knew that at age 50, this is probably, if this is successful, this will probably be the last job I have before retirement. If it's not successful, who knows, right?
No, no, I don't think so.
I'm hoping to retire by 60. But my point was is that I had this luxury because at 50, I had some money in the bank. My kids had grown up. Some of the pressure was off, right? I had some savings. So I could take a few months and really think about what was next. And when I did that, my friends came back and said, look, you are a guy who really can work in any country. You've proven that you're able to go in, doesn't matter if it's different culture, different language, and you're able to make things happen. That is a skill. You also are really passionate about travel, and it comes across when you talk to people. You're very enthusiastic. You're a great spokesperson for this as well. And so as I thought about, and then you have this personal passion, I told you, my selfishness. So as I thought about all of my options, because I could have done something else. I could have gotten a traditional job at a company like anyone else. When I thought about really what I have to offer, that's where I realized the good life abroad is perfect and perfectly suited deeply in my personality and my values, etc., to do this kind of work. And so I have more clarity. And I think that is become maybe the thing that has made this successful is because every part of me really believes in this, and I'm well suited to talk about it.
I think the additional reason, because you're clear that you are actually building the future lifestyle for yourself and people who like you. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. It's personal. It's personal.
It's not selfish, it's just personal. And as you mentioned already a couple of times, the place of community in experience that you provide with Good Life Abroad. Can you elaborate a little bit more about it? Because again, people are different. And now I'm thinking about my community, like to unite people with different actually interest and expectation. No, with travel is possible, but still to get the community that might be not just for the month together, but will have connections later on. Are you working somehow on this one? You starting with people like to the group, it's up to, I don't know, 10, 20 people? Like what's the format?
So it's between 10 and 20. On average, our groups are about 15, 16 people. And you're right. I'm going to answer you in two parts. First part is just as you get older, and especially in retirement, your community changes, right? Who are your connections? Who are the people in your life? When your kids are little, maybe it's the other parents at the school, right? And so now suddenly you have this group of friends because you have something in common, which is the school is a thing in common. So we're friends. And then the kids get older and off. And then your workplace, the workplace is something you have in common. So you make friends with people in the workplace. But what happens when the kids are gone, the workplace is gone, you're retired, and then who's that community? So for many people, it's the neighborhood, right? People in my neighborhood. However, what happens often in retirement is as the kids get older, grandparents might move to be closer to the kids and to be closer to the grandkids. So now they're living in a place that they don't actually have a lot of friends yet because they moved there for that. So maybe it's a faith community, maybe it's a church or a synagogue. Okay, that's one community. But our people who come on the Good Life Abroad, the thing that they're really passionate about is cultural immersion and travel. So when you put a bunch of people like that, and these are well-traveled people, our people who come with us, they've been at minimum 10 countries. I just spoke to a gentleman this morning, been to 80 countries. These people really, truly love travel, and it's almost a core value for them. So when you meet other people, it's almost like we share this core value that's sacred to us in our lives of travel. And that supersedes anything. And right now, I'll tell you, it's 2025. I live in the United States. It's a divided country, right? And people are divided in so many aspects. But what I love about when I go to visit the Good Life Abroad programs, people leave that back in the United States. Their politics, their religion, it's just about let's love Italy or Portugal or France or whatever it is. And it's about that exploration and those passions. I honestly believe that the people who get all angry and riled up online, I don't think anyone really enjoys that. If you have the option to just put your phone down and not look at things that make you upset and just go enjoy a place, I think everyone would just prefer to do that. And that's really what happens on these programs. Now, of course, you're there for a month or longer. In a group of 16, 17 people, you might not be best friends with every single person there, but you're going to find a handful of people that you really connect with, those 5 or 6 people. And then you might also have a little group where you say, hey, let's go travel for the weekend or want to go out to dinner tonight. And so you will have, of course, subgroups of friends who are going to do things. And those people then tend to be connected and stay in contact afterwards. And I see many cases where they become friends and visit each other back in the United States. And I think about 30% of our travelers are solo travelers. And so this sense of community is like very nice for them because they can jump in and have friends, but also solo travelers at times want to be independent and they don't want to be with social, and you can easily step out and be independent or step in and be social, whatever you want. And there will be other solo travelers there, as well as couples. And the couples are all there because they enjoy that same cultural immersion that you do.
Do you have some written and unwritten community rules, what to do and what not to do?
We don't prescribe it so written because I don't think people like being told what to do. But I think what we try to focus on is let's focus the conversation, everything on the place that we're in right now. And typically people will say, look, this isn't a place for politics or for debate. If you want to do that, go do that with whoever you want to do. But as a group, we're here to talk about what we discovered today, what we're learning being in this new place, and sharing things that make us happy.
As you mentioned, through your career, you successfully blended technology with travel experiences. Do you have, or maybe you think about integrating some technological tools, or maybe you're using some features for travelers to be oriented in a new place? Are you offering this?
Yes, we are working on this. So the only technology we use right now is WhatsApp, which I'm sure you're familiar with, very popular in Europe, not as popular in the United States. But one of the great features within WhatsApp is a community feature. And so we use that. It's not just regular text messaging, but it's a community, and you can have announcements and then subgroups within there. And it works perfectly for the Good Life Abroad because the community manager can send announcements. Tomorrow we're meeting at 1 p.m. at this restaurant. We're going to make a cooking class or whatnot. And then there are going to be subgroups where the people in the community, oh, I love visiting cathedrals, cathedral lovers. This person, I like working out and doing exercise. Who wants to join my fitness buffs group? And so suddenly in this group of 16, 17 people, you're going to find other people who like visiting cathedrals. Go with them. I like going to the gym and working out. Now I have friends to go to the gym with. So that's a nice piece of technology that's worked well for us. What we're working on building is perhaps something within our own app so that group can live on after the program and people can stay connected there. So we're thinking of trying to create some kind of community for each group so they can take that with them. We're also working on building out some more technology to provide more resources while you're there. Whether it's as simple as I want to take language classes, I can just click a button and connect me to the local language school, to offer discounts with local suppliers. For example, if I wanted to rent a car, if you click here, maybe you get 20% off, and we can provide benefits for our members. But that's something I think we're still about 1 year away from.
Great, great. There's a lot of things that can be done, and I even know some apps that might ease like accommodation and from information point of view to navigate people to be actually independent if they wish, because I understand during the day people mostly planning their activities themselves. Yes. With your experience in leading and co-founding multiple companies, what key leadership lessons have you learned that are crucial to midlife professionals which are thinking about reinventing their careers after 50?
I think whenever someone thinks about reinvention, it can be scary because it's like I'm doing something new and maybe I don't have the skills, I don't have the experience because it's something I haven't done before. But I really want to communicate to all of your listeners that you actually have gained so much skills. I feel like it does later in life, there's so much we've learned that's not textbook learning or classroom learning, but we've lived. We've worked in many different environments at this point. We've interacted with many different types of people. We have skills we don't even realize. And that is a powerful thing. And those skills can be transferred to your reinvention. Whatever the new thing is, you have skills you don't realize that can be used and deployed elsewhere. And that's why I think it's important to do this sort of pause and do this inventory about yourself. What do I have? Who am I? And this was very helpful with my friends to coach me through this. And then say, okay, I can take things I've done in the past, whether it was African education or some kind of technology company, and apply some of these lessons to my new venture, even though it's not exactly the same. And the other thing is, so one is you gain wisdom about yourself and the world. Two, most people at age 50 or wherever probably have a little bit more money in the bank than they did when they were 20 or 21. And so then you actually have a little bit more of a cushion perhaps. And three, network. You have a network at later in life that's much bigger than it has when you were younger. And that network can be very beneficial in connecting you to resources or talent. Because one of the things I've learned is I have a clear vision, but I'm not the smartest guy in the room for every task. There's certain tasks I'm really good at, and I definitely have the vision. And I have enough humility to know I need to find other people to support me in the areas that I need support in. And how great is it now where I can just go into my LinkedIn and I realize I have a network of thousands of people and I can see who might be able to help me out. In fact, my very first hire was me going onto LinkedIn and saying, who do I know in Portugal? And I found this guy that I had worked with 15 years prior. And I reached out and said, hey, I'm going to go to Portugal. I'm looking to hire someone. And then he said, oh, you should meet my wife. And then one thing led to another. And next thing I know, I hired his wife. And then they connected me to people in Italy. So anyway, network. So there's advantages you have later in life that you don't have when you're younger. And it's important not to forget these things when you're trying to reinvent yourself, because you do have more equipment to help you be successful than you might realize.
Absolutely agree. Thank you for outlining this because sometimes people we live with it and we don't understand how valuable it is looking around. And by the way, for me, retirement it's not completely relaxing stage of life. It depends if people wish it, but today with technological advancement, medical advancement. And if we take care about our body and mind, actually, from the midlife, we have still 40, 50 years of active life. And because our previous program, whatever you mentioned, like you need to get education, start your career, entrepreneurship, family, children, like at 50 plus, you completed this program mostly and you have time to redefine yourself. It is what my podcast and what I'm speaking about to have time ahead, but to be clear, and it's a work. It's not probably for 1 month or year, but to have this positive vision that you have another life to live thanks to the time we are living in and you can get a great experience and to open new talents and actually to learn more about yourself.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Beyond professional achievements and experience, you enjoy studying languages, and please tell us how many languages do you know and learn. Anthropology, you mentioned not once, and traveling with your daughters. Speaking about your daughters, they're not coming to these trips because it's not the age group. How you balance all this?
So, languages, we'll start with the easy one. So, right now, I just speak Spanish and Portuguese and petit peu le français, but I have known and have now forgotten some conversational Quechua, Thai, very basic taxi level Russian, Swahili. But those languages I've forgotten without using them after many years. But early in my career, when I was setting up international nonprofits for this organization in New York, I was spending months at a time in many different countries. And I learned that within a month or so, I could get basic taxi driver language competency. And then with another month, I can have conversations. And so I really enjoyed that. At this point, I just said, okay, I'm going to focus on Spanish, Portuguese, and French. And that's it for now. And then the next part of your question was around the kids. I'm a single dad, and my two daughters came with me early in my career with a lot of this travel that I was doing. And I always look at it as part of their education to make sure they know that the United States is just one place in the world and San Diego, California is just one city. And I think that helped them, especially in those high school years where hormones are raging and everyone's worried about being popular or not popular and having friends. And I think they always look, yeah, whatever's happening in this school, this is not the end of the world. It's not so big. The world is a big place, and this is one place. So that was nice. Now I have one daughter off to university, and the other one's about to finish high school, and she goes to a boarding school. So she lives on the campus of school, and then she's about to go to university in about 1 year. And so that does free me up to do things like the Good Life Abroad. And I think that's another thing when people think about reinvention and redefining their lives. For me, I probably couldn't have done this 10 years ago because I had to take care of the kids. But now it's this unique opportunity. Financially, the kids' education is taken care of. The kids are taken care of. They're well sorted out. And this gives me time and opportunity to build this new business, which does require a fair amount of travel on my part.
But do you still travel together sometimes?
Yes. Now we try to plan family vacations. We were talking about it last night, and it's harder because the one in college wants to come back and get a job and make some money, and the other one is trying to do internships and other things. But we do find times to carve out, especially to go see family in other parts of the country. And sometimes it's as simple as, you know what, we live in San Diego. It's a beautiful coastal city in California. let's do a staycation and we'll just get a hotel on the beach for a few days and just have that quality time together away from the distractions of daily life.
What other hobbies or interests do you have other than mentioned?
I like to do triathlon. I live in San Diego, so I swim in the ocean. I like cycling. I just did my first Ironman 70.3 a few months ago. So again, at age 50, it's never too late to do something for the first time. And then I like playing tennis and other racket sports.
Thank you. And again, coming to the topic, but now speaking about people who are planning, considering a relocation abroad for retirement, or maybe slow travel, which will lead to relocation, what you would suggest to professionals who are in brink of this massive leap to a new life chapter by relocation with your experience living in different countries?
Yeah, I think there's some pitfalls if you're not careful, if you don't really think about what you're doing. There's some pitfalls, but they're easily avoided. And I think what I mean by that is a sense of community. Sometimes people go, I'm going to go to this place. It's going to be wonderful. I'm going to be in this tiny Italian village and then the best thing, it's like a movie. And you get there and you're in this tiny Italian village and you get bored. And the people, nobody speaks English. And these people have lived there for hundreds of years. And the young people have all moved to the city because that's where the jobs are. And the old people have their friends. And it's, oh, I thought it was just going to be like a movie, right? The reality is it's a little more complicated. So my first piece of advice is before you make that big move, go visit and go visit for a few weeks or a month. Don't visit for a couple of days. It's one thing to be there for a couple of days. It's a different thing to be there for a month. Let's start there. Now, assuming you found a city that you really, I would say, still do the same thing. Spend a month there and to understand everything from the neighborhood. Each neighborhood has a different personality, maybe the traffic patterns, maybe the noise patterns, depending on what you like. And it's important to do that background. And then this idea of community. Now, of course, the good life abroad, you have a built-in community. It's very easy. But if you're going to relocate permanently or for a long period of time, I really encourage people to not forget that you will want friendships, that you're not an island by yourself. And I think I always encourage people to look at things like Meetup. There's different meetups or affinity groups, Facebook groups, Reddit groups, where you could find people who share some of your interests. And it could be something as simple as people who want to learn to speak Italian in this example, and you'll find other people. You all share this thing of wanting to learn Italian, or it might be an interest in, for me, business and entrepreneurship. I love being around people who are entrepreneurial, arts lovers. These things are great ways for you to make connections with other people and to slowly develop friendships through repeated interaction, and they get to know you and that. And I also think it could be something as simple, because I tell this to all of our community members, when you're there, get some habits going. Go to that cafe every morning if that's what you're going to have coffee. If you're an exercise person, go to the gym. And I guarantee you, after 2 weeks, they will, oh, this person, he was not just here for a couple of days. This person is a regular, and they get to know you. And then it's part of the fabric of your life. And that makes the whole tapestry more beautiful.
Thank you very much. I really like your advices. Thank you. I very appreciate. And I was enjoying this conversation. I hope the same will be fair for listeners. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you for joining us on this Age of Reinvention episode with our dear guest, Andrew Motiwalla. His journey reminds us that midlife is not a time to slow down, but a chance to explore new horizons, new countries, redefine personal freedom, and create a life full of purpose and connection. If Andrew's story has inspired you and you are considering a leap into reinvention and global travel, remember that it's never too late to embrace change and seek out new adventures. Remember to subscribe to our podcast for more stories of transformation and empowerment. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review or share it with someone who might need a dose of inspiration. Until next time, this is Emily Bron signing off. Keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep reinventing.